Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode as we return to the My Favorite WWF LJN tournament. This is round 1, episode 9, or part 9. So, yep, today there is something a little bit different about me. I just, I can't put my finger quite on it. Yeah, I know. My freaking wife's an asshole. That's what's different about me. Look, man. I freaking love my beard. My beard is like my identity. And I get crap from her on a consistent basis because she doesn't like looking at my beard. I'm like, just let me have one thing in this world. I'm so ticked off. Next thing that's going to go, she's going to try and shave my head. But I don't know, man. I kind of want to grow my hair out, kind of get that whole Bon Jovi look, but at this point, I'm not... I think the longest I've ever had my hair was probably, like, maybe here. And you kind of sit there and you kind of shake your head back and forth, and the hair kind of goes back in front of your face. Like, that was nice. And I was in Afghanistan when that was going on and whatnot, and, you know, that's the longest I've ever had, because I'm not used to having hair. Didn't have long hair growing up. When I got into high school, I was in JROTC. Right after high school, I was in the Army, so I spent a good chunk of my life with a shaved head. So it wasn't until really going into government contracting overseas when I finally started having long hair, or longer hair in my life. But I kind of feel like in the next video or next subsequent videos, I'm probably going to have a shaved head, or very shaved down head at least. I don't like this. I miss my beard. I feel naked without it. Like I said, guys, part 9 already. So when I'm going to post this video, I don't know. I'm kind of filming all these videos immediately, and I'm trying to post them on back-to-back days. But I just watched a video that was posted today that really irked me. And I went ahead and left a little comment on the community post. Some of the folks that knows what's going on with the channel, they might get a kick out of, or might get a little chuckle out of the comment. But maybe one day I will start talking about it, since, you know, won't stop talking smack. So, but we're not going to discuss that. We are going to go back into the topic at hand, which is the tournament. So we are going to go ahead, pull those 8 figures, or draw the 8 names, and let's get started. All right, number 1 is Adrian Adonis. And Adrian Adonis will square off against Animal Custom. Okay, so that is one of the 3 Legion of Doom custom figures I have. Next matchup is going to feature Howard Finkel. That's probably the Random Treasures figure. And Howard Finkel squares off against Yellow Brutus. This one's going to feature Rick Rude from Wrestling Rider, as he does battle with Bret Hart with Stripe. That's actually a Wrestling Rider figure as well. And last one, the last matchup, is going to feature a Wrestling Rider Barbarian, as he does battle against Greg Valentine. Alright, cool. So, it seems like so far in the first nine videos, most of these videos are very Wrestling Rider heavy. And if they're not Wrestling Rider heavy, they're Random Treasures heavy. But we're seeing a whole lot more of those 2 customizers as we are to any other customizer or any of the main lines. So I kind of feel like we're not going to start getting a lot of the main figures probably until like maybe videos 20 and onward. But hopefully we'll start seeing a whole lot more original figures a lot sooner. Kind of start balancing things out. But I'm gonna pull the figures and be back momentarily. Alright guys, so the 8 figures have been pulled and there is one update. So the Howard Finkel figure that I thought was Random Treasures, it was actually KL for Kenny Lester. That's a Raider Nation purchase. So I didn't pull a Random Treasures figure for that one. The first matchup for today is going to feature Animal Custom as he does battle against Adrian Adonis. So we will start with the Animal figure. I can't remember if the tag team that I purchased from the random eBay seller, it was a couple figures I got on auction. I probably paid like $75, and their Hawk figure I feel like was a better figure than what you got from Random Treasures. And kind of keep in mind that Random Treasures, for their 2 figures, you paid about $400, right? And basically their Animal was this, the exact same figure, Ken Patera pose, right? So comparing $400 to Random Treasures or the $75 to this random customizer that I bought this from, you know, it's like apples and oranges, man. It was crazy. So that for that aspect, yes, financially it's better. So I come to find out that no, Random Treasures, they don't have like this machine or anything that kind of prints out duplicate figures or paints duplicate figures, that it's all hand painted by one person. And I kind of assume that does all of her painting herself anyways for a lot of it, but I always assumed that there was like multiple artists or painters that work on them. But that was kind of interesting. So I'm like crazy impressed by that she's able to sit there and paint it and then send out multiple figures all simultaneously. But prices are still way too high though. This, as I said, as far as a Random Treasures figure, alright, I apologize guys, my phone did die out on me. I think it had some kind of updates or something going on, so I have to kind of cut in. Looks like I'm gonna have to edit this video into the system upstairs, onto the laptop or a desktop computer, kind of blend the 2 videos together. So the last thing I was talking about was Animal, and what I was saying was basically if you're looking at this customization or if you're looking at the Random Treasures figure, Ken Patera was a bad choice. The overall figure design, head paint, face paint is phenomenal. Love it. Where Random Treasures exceeded, they had the muscles on the back and the shoulders was incredible. You really don't see that there. It's just basically a flattened back for the most part. I mean, yes, you do kind of have like the little Ken Patera muscles and the big bulky chest and whatnot. Perfect, great. Some of the designs on the side of the pants are really solid. But yeah, to an extent, I really like the Random Treasures figure better. Rubber-wise, I think maybe this is a little bit harder, much more LJN reminiscent. So I think the rubber that was used on the original set of, I call them red, Legion of Doom figures. Because you got Legion of Doom and you got Road Warriors. They're both the same thing. Even when you look at the AWA Remco tag team set, it says both names, right? So they've always gone by both names in conjunction with one another. So a really solid piece. Aesthetically pleasing, pose wise, kind of like up there with like your Macho Man and everything. And I'm not the biggest Macho Man pose wise figure. One Man Gang, not happy about those type of poses, which is a damn shame because Ken Patera, you take away the purple look, it's actually a really solid figure. One Man Gang is a freaking awesome figure, but the pose destroys it, right? Adrian Adonis. A lot of these figures that we're looking at that are original, I've said before, I have basically 2 collections, and a lot of the figures that I really enjoy, I keep spares, and that's what you see in that caged wrestling ring, LJN ring, is a lot of the duplicate figures. And when I make videos like this, it really helps. I don't have to touch the main display, right? I hated this figure when I first saw it. I bought it for the collection. That was it. Today, it's a top 20 LJN figure for me. I mean, it's still a punch figure, it's still one arm toss over, one arm under body slam. You still do like a little DDT and whatnot. The pose might be a little bit difficult because of the way that the leg is kicked out and whatnot. Aesthetically, fantastic. Going back and actually watching old YouTube videos, and there's a lot of like Hogan versus Adrian Adonis matches. And I've said it with like guys like Adrian Adonis, yes. King Kong Bundy, most definitely. Early stages of Yokozuna to an extent. Obviously later on when he got like up to like 550, 600, maybe not as much. But guys that were, hell, even earlier years of Andre the Giant. Late 70s, early 80s, Andre the Giant was freaking mobile as hell. Later on when he had the back problems and whatnot, I mean, he was nothing more than a slap, bear hug, and headbutt guy, but you see Andre in freaking Japan, the way that he goes freaking flying over the ropes and everything, incredible. And for a guy, I mean, this guy had to be good north 300 pounds easy, right? And he was freaking agile as hell. King Kong Bundy, 400 plus pounds. Pfft, man, that guy could get around the ring. A lot of fun matches. So, look-wise, yeah, of course. Design, you're going to give credit where credit is due, and Animal is absolutely killer in that respect. But I say that the pose is always going to be the number one thing I gravitate towards. Now, if two figures have really good poses, then we can start looking at the colors and the graphics or design of the figure. Is that always the case? Not really. There's a lot of times where I look at a figure and the figure's fighting pose is just lights out. Probably one of the most enjoyable figures you would ever see. Think Series 1 Hogan. Now, you put a Series 1 Hogan, and let's say, hypothetically, you're going up against, I don't know, Big Boss Man. Big Boss Man with all the colors and flashiness and everything. Plus, like Hogan, he's got that name recognition. Someone I grew up watching, and loving. So, yeah, I could see that. I could see a Big Boss Man beating a Hulk Hogan, for example. I'm going to give credit to Adrian Adonis on this one. To me, it's the most reasonable choice. I'm selecting Adrian Adonis to push forward into round 2. Next battle was Yellow Brutus, and he squares off against Howard Finkel. Now, this was actually the first Howard Finkel figure I purchased, which came from the Raider Nation, and artist Kenny Lester. You always see that KL on the bottom of the shoes. So, I don't know. I think if I knew that Ram Treasures was coming out with their own Howard Finkel, yeah, this one is cheaper. But I think I still paid up like maybe $80 or something for this one. So, and when you kind of look at the head, I don't know what's, like I talked about it. A lot of these Raider Nation figures kind of have that look to it. Like when we talked about the Hercules figure, you're going to see that kind of look with a lot of these pieces. And I mean, it's not like the most distracting thing in the world. I mean, there's still value. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have purchased it, right? But looks nice. The head mold is fantastic. Utilizing Mean Gene Okerlund, of course, because you always have to use Mean Gene. Howard Finkel, Lord Alfred Hayes, Jack Tunney, Donald Trump. It does not matter. Everybody gets utilized using a Mean Gene Okerlund body. Good looking figure. And a very much deserved figure, I would say. Brutus Beefcake. I have so many freaking customs of Brutus Beefcake. And that's the thing with Brutus. Because there are so many different Brutus figures in this tournament, I can sit there and eliminate 6 Brutus Beefcakes in one single video, and I can have 6 videos or 6 matchups, 6 eliminations, and still be good because I just have so many of these guys laying around. Roddy Piper and Brutus Beefcake, they're probably 2 of my most customized figures that I own. Now, there are a lot of wrestlers that I have customizations of, that I have several duplicates of, but this look, I don't really recognize this look. I think this might be like maybe WCW days. I'm not sure. If it was white pants with the black spots, I would say, okay, white zebra pants. That reminds me of Hasbro Series 3, right? So that would give me an era, but I don't remember this look myself. But I didn't know the blue pants from Ram Treasures. Not until I looked it up and like, okay, there's a picture of him wearing it. That makes sense. And you always want to kind of compare the look of a figure to something that a wrestler or a commentator or an executive or someone that they actually wore in real life. In terms of actual appearance and usage, I think you got to give it to Brutus. I don't think there's any ins or buts about it. Brutus Beefcake. So these 2 figures are Wrestling Writer Customs. And it's going to be Rick Rude squares off against Bret Hart. We will start with Bret Hart. So, like many figures in the past, I would buy a figure off eBay, usually several figures, and I would send Eric a whole box full of figures that I would want, and I'd pay him through PayPal, and I would let him know what, and we would kind of discuss what how I want that figure to be designed. And I think Buddy Daly on eBay, Stinger GQ, awesome seller. I've talked about him many on my channel before. I bought a ton of my LJN customs from him in the past. I don't think he was ever a customizer. I just think he was obviously a collector and reseller, obviously. But he had a couple. I think he had the Hart Foundation and Jimmy Hart in this design. I think they went for like $120, maybe $123 or something. And I was ticked off. Because Hart Foundation, I don't care if you're talking about original Hart Foundation or customs. Sometimes you gotta feel like original or the customs gotta be more valuable than the original, because somebody had to sit there and put time and effort into repainting that stuff, right? And you can't get an original Bret Hart pretty beat up for $123. So I was ticked off. I missed that. I think I was bidding on it, but either my phone or my computer, whatever I was on, froze up, and I couldn't put a last bid in. So I was furious. And I really love this look. Mid-1980s Hart Foundation. Before Bret Hart was the Bret Hart that we know and love today. Before he was, I don't know, was he still known as the Excellence of Execution in the 80s? Or was that like a 90s thing? Like, I kind of remember Hart Foundation very vividly, or no, it's not vivid. Like, I remember a little bit about them in the like early 90s, 1990, I would say, but most of my memories of the Hart Foundation are, again, very, very small amounts. It's usually just circulates around Bret Hart himself, probably the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, and definitely, in my opinion, one of the top 3 greatest heavyweight champions of all time. Probably a top 5, top 10 greatest wrestler ever. So, I think Bret Hart, LJN in general, is probably the most overrated figure of the entire collection. And I know I'm going to get ridiculed like crazy for saying that, but it is. Oh my God. Don't get me wrong. I rate this figure very high on my list. When I look at the original LJN line, And I'm putting them in order of number 1, my most favorite figure, number 10, my 10th most favorite, number 30, my 30th most favorite figure, etc. I think I have him at like number 14 or something. Number 12, 13, 14, somewhere around there. But he's an overrated figure because Bret Hart is nothing more than a punch. Yeah, that's it. He's a right hand punch. And he's basically a right hand uppercut punch. Left hand, you can't do anything other than like a darn DDT. Drop kick, okay, everybody has that. Can't really drop an elbow. I mean, doesn't have a bended arm for that. A little bit. One arm toss over, I mean, it's like they tried to make a Tito Santana, or the original design of Tito Santana, and ended up putting him on instead of Series 3, they ended up putting Tito Santana's arms way out like this, and then had that design available and decided to put it on Bret Hart in Series 4. I think that's what they were going with. So a lot of folks that were like, hey, Tito Santana has this design or has this fighting pose on the back of the card. And I talk about that because as of today, I just watched, or I just saw that XOX Customs posted a new Tito Santana figure, and it looks like the prototype that you see on the back of LJN's, and I went ahead and purchased it. But yeah, it's basically the exact same figure. Look at Tito Santana prototype. Look at this. Anybody could have customized Tito Santana at any time. You want an original prototype, cut off Bret Hart's head and put on Tito Santana's head. That would be an absolute waste. But if you really have your heart set on a prototype, it's right here. Rick Rude. This is actually... There was a bundle of figures I bought from Eric back in... I want to say December 2021. So there was Rick Rude, Powers of Pain, Ultimate Warrior, and I believe Mr. Perfect. And they were the first group, or first bundle of custom figures I ever bought from him. And somewhere in there, it was different. Because I bought a Bret Hart with jacket, and I also got this one. I bought them separately. I got Powers of Pain, I got Ultimate Warrior, and I got Mr. Perfect. I think the fifth one was like a Mr. Fuji, but that wasn't custom. But yeah, these were all around the same time. At one point, I used to say I love this figure. When my custom collection was very small, yeah, I could sit there and argue that. But nowadays, probably not so much. I mean, the head is fine. I mean, he's got that rip body. Use a Paul Orndorff figure, just like Rick Rude. I love the pink of the pants. It's a very simple figure. But I don't like... I mean, Paul Orndorff has a very mediocre fighting pose. And I've got this. I've got Warlord that has this fighting pose. I mean, Paul Orndorff is a very customizable figure. And Powers of Pain and Rick Rude are always being utilized from a Paul Orndorff. So among the Wrestling Rider figures, this was at one point a very enjoyable figure, and now it's, among all of his customs, probably one of my least favorite figures. This to me is an absolute no-brainer. History of Bret Hart, much better figure, at least much more playable. You could do a lot more with this figure, and I enjoy the colors better. And at least he spent some time and actually tried on this one, so that's something as well. The last matchup, I talked about the Powers of Pain. Well, here was the Barbarian from Wrestling Rider. If I were to go back today, would I still buy his Powers of Pain, his Barbarian, and his Warlord? More than likely, no. The head sculpt of Barbarian, I used to love it, but again, kind of... I mean, still being relatively new to LJNs back in 2021. I was new to LJNs in 2021. When I bought these in December, I mean, I had very few, like probably less than a handful of LJNs at that time. Less than a handful of customs LJNs at the time. That would have satisfied me back then. Over 300, almost 300 a quarter LJNs now. As far as LJN quality, this is one of my least favorite pieces of the entire collection. And you got the stupid Jesse Ventura pose to boot. No, this would not be something I would have gone for. To me, terrible. The head is weird. The fighting pose sucks. There's some kind of weird breakage in the back. So the overall quality of the figure, it just isn't there. And Greg freaking Valentine. My last tournament, Greg Valentine was a first-time elimination. But there's some things that I've talked about when I've discussed Greg Valentine. Growing up as a kid, Greg Valentine was just kind of like your mid-card guy. When I kind of feel like in baseball terms, he was more of a bench guy. He wasn't a mega superstar. He wasn't someone that would highlight like a WrestleMania. At least to me, he wasn't. To me, he was never a champion. You know, he wasn't like anybody that comes into a Royal Rumble like Undertaker and just clears the ring. He might be in there 10, 15, 20 minutes, but like, you know, he holds his own, but he's not like anyone that was like super special. And obviously, when I got into collecting a few years back, started learning a lot about 1980s wrestling, or refreshed a lot of old memories. And shoot, Greg Valentine really was that superstar that I thought he wasn't. Intercontinental champion, tag team champion. You want him to highlight these main events? Yeah, he was your guy. His action figure, it didn't do anything for me when I first got it. It was part of the LJN collection, so I needed it for that purpose. When I did my Rumbles and I started using the figure, he'd be like my number 2 entrant, number 3 entrant into the Royal Rumble, and he'd be like one of the last 2 men standing. Why? Because I had so much fun using him, I just didn't want to get rid of him. Easily one of the most fun, one of the most enjoyable action figures of the entire LJN. And that's why I love the Barry Windham figure from Galoob. Why I love Ram Treasure's Barry Windham, because exact figure. Jerry Saggs, original San Francisco, same figure. Harlem Heat, original San Francisco, same figure. I talk about Terry Taylor, Red Rooster, close enough. I mean, not the same figure, but it's reasonable. I've been saying that Greg Valentine is like my 5th favorite LJN. Is that fair? If I had to redo that, I'd probably push him further down to like 8 or 9. It's still not a bad figure. I just like figures like Big Boss Man and Ultimate Warrior. Not only with their fighting pose, but with their colors and design and everything. I just feel like those deserve a much higher ranking. So, SD Jones deserves a much higher ranking, right? So, but Greg Valentine, he was eliminated first time go in my second tournament only because he went up against himself. He lost to his Rhythm and Blues custom. Otherwise, this figure was a 5th rounder in my very first tournament. And because I decided to switch things up this tournament and allow every figure to be their own unique figure, that means original figures were not squaring off against their custom counterparts. So you weren't having one original Brutus Beefcake squaring off against 7 custom Brutus Beefcakes and only having one of those figures move on to the next round. You're having all 8 of those Brutus Beefcakes squaring off against different counterparts. So 8 opportunities for that particular figure to move forward, right? So, yeah. If this one doesn't do well, his counterpart custom could move forward, and vice versa. So, to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. Greg Valentine should find himself back in the 5th round in this tournament. If not this, at least his other counterpart. If not further. But we'll see what happens and how this tournament plays out. Very easy decision for me. So, guys, that does complete this video. This is round 1, part 9. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time. Thanks, everyone.